What's the most satisfying act of revenge that you've ever experienced? Once. In first grade. I took off my shoe because I had a rock in it. For no reason other than this kid was a huge asshole. The class jerk stole it and took off running. I chase after him and he eventually throws my shoe down a hill into a field of tall grass and just looks at me with a huge eating grin. In a bad as stone cold first grade timber I say, "Go find it." And shove him down the hill into the grass after it. He starts crying and we run to the teacher. After explaining what happened, she made him go into the field and find my shoe. He crawled through the grass for about an hour before it finally turned up. When I was about 13-14, there was this kid on the school bus who was about a year older than me and used to pick on me a lot. He was a total arrogant dick. One time he came and sat next to me and tried to pull the old "Hey, did you know if your hand is bigger than your face you have cancer?" Basically the idea is you get the person to then hold their hand right against their face. And then you hit their hand, causing them to hit themselves in the face. I wasn't falling for it. So he puts his hand against his own face in order to try and show me what to do. What do? Turn his own prank against him and smack his hand into his face. His nose starts bleeding quite badly. God, that felt good. My parents told me when I was 4 years old. My older sister had thrown my new toy truck over the fence intentionally. My dad said he then watched me go into the fridge, grab my sister's cup of juice and mix it with ketchup, mayonnaise, salt, some banana that I had chewed up already, and a whole lot of spit. After that my dad told me I walked into her room and handed her the cup and said, with the lisp I once had, "I forgive you, sissy." At my school we had a douchebag who liked to stand next to his locker talking to one of his friends. And when someone got too close to it he'd slam it open into their face. As there were no cameras near this hallway, it was always dismissed as an accident. Anyways, one day he felt the need to open it into my best friend's face. Gave him a bloody nose and almost broke it. Now, as I'm sure you all would be, I was pissed off. So the day my friend got back, the douche felt the need to approach him to apologize about hitting my friend. Luckily, my locker was located between my friend and the other kid. When I saw I could do it, I casually unlocked my locker, waited for him to get close to it, and slammed it into him. Broke his nose and entered the locker. Revenge is sweet. I guess it's not really revenge because I didn't inflict this fate on this person. But this ex-popular girl who bullied me in middle and high school for having a scoliosis brace being a fugly les came into the credit union I work for to get help for her debts that she couldn't afford to pay back. She was overweight, dressed like a had-been B-list porn star, and financially ducked. I straightened my suit, took her into my office, and helped her with consolidation loans. I could tell she wanted me to say something about our past, but I didn't. Sometimes the best vengeance really is living better and showing those people who hurt you that they are just a passing blow. Also, like I said, she was ducked anyway. This kid picked on me since first grade. Then one day in fourth grade, the teacher had her back turned, so he climbed under my table and started pulling faces at me, not sure why. He was kinda weird. It must have been a knee-jerk reaction, but his face was there and my foot was here, so I kicked him in the face. Kid falls to ground shrieking while clutching his head. Teacher turns around and sees him out of his desk. Gives him detention. Later that day, his face had swollen to the size of a volleyball and he had stopped crying long enough to tell the teacher what had happened. My teacher asked me if it was true and I said I felt something tugging on my shoe, so I kicked, thinking it was caught on something. The teacher gave me a lollipop, saying be aware of my surroundings next time. The kid never bothered me again. Best day ever. Lived in a rented house for 7 years next to a psychotic lawn worshipping lady. Hated us for renting. Hated us for not having as much money as her. Made our lives hell. The night before we moved, loaded U-Haul waiting patiently at the curb. I emptied $100 worth of Roundup and nice pen 15 shaped patterns on her perfectly groomed lawn. Haven't been back. Never saw it. But I take comfort from her pain. As I perceive it. When I was a young chap. Around 6. My brother stole my Game Boy Color and deleted my save Pokemon games. I worked super hard for the amount of Pokemon I had caught and was quite furious. I later grabbed a butcher knife from the kitchen when my parents weren't home and chased him around the house until he locked himself in the bathroom. I put the blade of the knife under the door and slid it back and forth. He was screaming non-stop and started crying. I eventually stopped after about an hour and let him out. I'm not sure why, but this question made me think back 20 years ago and I felt extremely satisfied at the thought and thought I would share. My boss had a falling out with her boss and he, boss, decided he would destroy her and everything she cared about. This meant he was going to destroy me too. Since my boss had done a lot to get me where I was. I didn't get fired or officially demoted. But I was moved a few layers deeper on an organization chart and put into a job I used to do 4 years earlier. I got angry for 2 days. Then polished my resume and cast it across my large company. A month after it happened, I was flying across the country to interview for the most prestigious RAND organization in my industry, and 3 months after that I was watching someone load my sheet into a moving van. The evildoer was fired 2 weeks after I started my new job, in the same company. Very different division. I never had to file a grievance. My silent determination to get out from under him was the loudest scream. And losing a very promising person made the company really look into him. I'd been dating a guy for a little over a year when he decided to leave me for this girl he'd been passing off as his best friend. I was always suspicious that there was something between them, but they both assured me there wasn't. I was heartbroken. I've never quite been the same after that. Anyway, I ducked his best friend. That was the first time I'd had a smile on my face in months because I knew it would hurt him. And it did. Also, the 6 was super hot. My older sister was always verbally and physically abusive to me. One day we got back from buying candy. And as we are walking, she is saying so much shit that I lose my mind. I threw the open pack of Pop Rocks into her face. The moisture of her eyes started making the candy pop. Crying made it worse. But the icing was when she tried to flush it out with the garden hose. Creating, what I imagine based on her screams, the most painful experience with candy ever. Now ex-wife was cheating on me. Threw me and the kids out. We had to move 6 hours away. When I drove back to get mine and the kids' stuff, I caught her and her new BF. Well, you know. She had sworn there was no one else. Yeah, right. I told her that when they left for work I was taking everything in the house. And I did. Right down to the broom and vacuum cleaner. Which made it hard to clean the cigarette ash stains out of the carpet and all the broken glasses off of the linoleum. Also, pissed in the milk. Thousands upon thousands of dollars worth of my ex-wife's expensive shoes, clothing, and purses may or may not have mysteriously vanished. I may or may not have also kept quite a few of her belongings, kitchen stuff, etc. that may or may not have been hers. This may or may not have had to do with the fact that she cheated on me for my entire marriage and I found out about it right before our court hearing. The above may or may not have been in my garage for storage while she was moving into her new house with the boyfriend. Some of her other belongings may or may not have been damaged in some small way or disappeared. One kid, Zach, in my high school spread a lot of shit about how I was jealous of him, his life, and his girlfriend, Emily. I wasn't. He was overweight, broke, and his girlfriend was a plank. Still, it pissed me off. He didn't know that I knew that he said all this shit. I started convincing him that a girl named Brittany liked him. Brittany was the go-to girl for every guy to like in my high school. Every guy wanted Brittany. After about 2 weeks of convincing him, he posts a bulletin on MySpace, this was a long time ago, about how he isn't sure of his feelings with Emily and wants to move on. Emily saw this and didn't appreciate it very much. The next day, she confronted him. He told her that he loved her. She said no. They break up. Zach wasn't sad. He still had Brittany. That night. I tell him that I'd stuck with him this entire time because of what he did to me. He didn't believe me. Asked Brittany out. And got rejected. He cried. He went from having 2 girls to 0 in hours. I won. Beating the shit out of someone. There's nothing like hurting someone who has wronged you. The feeling of a good punch is great. Seeing them go down is better. Kicking their ribs in is fun too. And that's why no one ever picked on my autistic brother again. It was actually against me. If that gives you any clue as to how justified and perfect it was. When I was 4 and my brother was 6, we were on our way to my great-grandfather's funeral. My parents stop at McDonald's and out of my brother's small fry bag, the 4.5 tall white bag of fries, he pulls an 11 inches fry. Impossible, right? We're in the back seat. I see it. He yells to my parents to witness this awesome fry, but before they can turn around I snatch it and eat it. He is upset. Whatever. Cut to 12 years later. Home after school. No parents. Friends hanging out in the kitchen. Everyone is scurrying around for an after school snack. My brother and I are at the table and our friends are in the other part of the kitchen. Out of this bag of wavy loos I pull a potato chip that is literally the size of my skull. No idea how this thing didn't break in transit. I'm like, oh my god. Guys. Look at this chip. Before anyone can even turn their heads. My brother reaches across with his right hand and crushes the chip to crumbs. I have WTF eyes bearing down on him and he simply says, "That's for the fry." 12 years had passed and we had never spoken about it, but it took less than a second to remember everything and just nod in agreement that the score was settled. One enormous potato product for another. Truth story. On a plane. Guy in the seat in front of me, who I'd never met before, starts up a conversation that goes on for too long. At a certain point, he is standing up in the aisle to get closer, continuing to jabber on. While I am trying to be polite and listen, he continues for so long that the flight attendant asks him to sit down, since he is blocking her cart and drinks service. He refuses, saying he is talking to his friend, that is, me. At the end of the flight, he asks the flight attendant for her name, which she provides. He then says he's going to report her to airline management and file a complaint about her being rude to customers, that is, him. Shocked flight attendant asks him if she can get his name, saying it's only fair because he has hers. She asks him 1 or 2 times, then drops it when the douchebag refuses to identify himself. At the end of the flight, as passengers get off the plane, I fumble with my luggage so as not to have to follow the douchebag immediately off the plane. I find the aggrieved flight attendant and hand her the douchebag's business card, which he had tried to give me earlier. She seemed relieved. I felt profound satisfaction. This was in year 7. Secondary school. Don't know what that is in America. So pardon me, polished guy who came to England as being rude, calling names and acting like a general ass about my grandfather being German. My grandfather, I never met him. He died before I was born. Actually wanted to fight against Hitler. Was a big game hunter and an awesome zoologist. He said all Germans were Nazis, were evil and stuff like that. We were in German class, where he said stuff about Germany most of the time, and we were chosen to sit next to each other. After insulting me and mocking me in front of the whole class. As we're about to leave, I see Red and punch him and kick him right in his head and ass. All the popular kids in class laughed and congratulated me. I wasn't very popular and had few friends. So this was great, and I was so happy. Worth the internal exclusion though. I let the guy my girlfriend of 2 years was cheating with have her. She then went on to make his life miserable for 2 years. Then he stalked her for at least a year after she broke up with him. So, by letting go of a cheater, both their lives were hell for at least 3 years. I think I won. In high school, a friend of mine saw a couple kids egg her car. One of them was the child of a school board member and one of the only doctors in town, so he was a prominent person in town. We were trying to come up with some good revenge / his tires. Key his car, but he was a spoiled itch, so we knew his parents would pay for all of it. I came up with the idea to just straight up tattle on him to his mom. I went with her when she did. His mom called him out to the front door, started screaming at him. He cried. The mom gave her $100 and made him wash her car while we watched. I grew up with a stepbrother the same age as me. When we were about 15, I had to start shaving because my beard came in pretty early. I walked into the bathroom one day and caught him shaving his gonads with my brand new Gillette 4-blade razor. So I took his toothbrush, scrubbed the toilet with it, wiped off the residue and put it back. I also put blue food coloring in his Listerine mouthwash. I don't think he ever found out. He was, however, thoroughly confused as to why the mouthwash turned his entire mouth blue.